In this module, we will be looking at the intelligence cycle and its companion derivative, the intelligence process. The intelligence cycle model is at the core of intelligence work. It is therefore important that those involved with intelligence have a clear understanding of how the model works. This principle is equally applicable to senior managers who may be responsible for tasking and decision making that is based upon intelligence products. They should understand the system, its strengths and limitations. The intelligence cycle is a model for processing raw information into actionable intelligence. It is the engine that drives intelligence-led policing. Therefore, it is an integral component of modern law enforcement. The intelligence process is an adaptation of the intelligence cycle that emphasizes the component parts of analysis and demonstrates the multidirectional nature of the system. In respect of the latter, there is an inherent facility to return to previous components without having completed the intelligence cycle in order to do so. This will be examined in more detail later. The first step in understanding the intelligence cycle is to understand the difference between information and intelligence. It is not unusual for people to use the words interchangeably, even those who work in an intelligence environment. Arguably, it does not matter as long as the difference is understood, and raw, unprocessed information isn't mistaken for intelligence. In a nutshell, information is the raw material or data from any source. It may be accurate or inaccurate, true or false. It may be fragmentary or complete, ambiguous or clear. In contrast, intelligence can be considered to be information with a value-added attribute. This is assigned as a consequence of the information having undergone analytical processing, analysis being the key component of the intelligence cycle. Simply put, intelligence is information plus analysis. Intelligence is important because it assists the business of law enforcement at both strategic and tactical levels. This is particularly true where an agency operates a proactive intelligence-led regime. Law enforcement agencies have traditionally operated in a reactive manner. That is to say, they respond to a problem, deal with the immediate issues and then go away. At some future time, perhaps the following day, or the next week, or the next month, there is a reoccurrence of the problem, which is substantially dealt with in the same way. The problem goes on indefinitely with little or no thought being given to a permanent solution. It can be considered analogous to a storm chaser who makes repeated sudden mad rushes to get to the site of the storm. In contrast, proactive policing identifies the existence of a problem or potential problem and seeks to resolve it permanently by problem solving. The problem is identified during the process of developing intelligence. This is analogous to the weatherman who, with a fair degree of certainty, can tell us where the storm will hit, allowing the householder to prepare for the onslaught, boarding up his windows and seeking safety in a shelter. The intelligence cycle provides a method of ordering and understanding the activities involved in the production of intelligence. It is also useful for understanding the interrelationships between the various constituent elements. The intelligence cycle comprises a number of interrelated and sequential stages that vary in number according to the authority consulted. In fact, the number of stages depicted varies between agencies of a single government, not to mention different countries and different global entities, for instance, the United Nations. The number of stages depicted in the model varies between 4 and 7 in number, notwithstanding that the differences are substantially cosmetic. Examination of the various versions of the model actually reveals more commonalities than differences. Very often component parts are merged or combined, simplified or complicated. For our purposes, the intelligence cycle comprises of 6 stages. They are direction, collection, evaluation, collation, analysis and dissemination. It is worth reiterating at this point that the intelligence cycle is a model that has application at various levels. it can be the mechanism that drives an agency's business. Equally, it can be the mechanism that drives a simple operation or assignment. Whilst there may appear to be a clear delineation between the constituent stages, in reality the reverse is true. The boundaries are flexible and interactive. Perhaps a most noteworthy feature is the ability of the cycle to feed back on itself at any point. This facility is demonstrated more clearly in the intelligence process diagram that we will discuss later. The intelligence process is a derivative of the intelligence cycle, depicting those same cycle stages in a linear manner and additionally illustrating the components of analysis. Analysis is by far the most important stage. It is crucial for the development of intelligence. Notwithstanding, it is dependent on each of the other stages. Before we examine the stages of the intelligence cycle and the process, it is necessary to understand that whilst the process is linear, theoretically and practically it is possible to return to the preceding stages of the process at any time. So, for example, having reached the point of collating information, it is possible to return to collection if the circumstances make it desirable or necessary. However, returning to previous stages is a formal requirement during the analytical stage of the process. This is because of the need to test any hypothesis that may have been developed. This will be examined later when we examine the analysis stage in more detail. As we can see, direction is the first stage of the intelligence cycle. At a basic level, it is simply the instruction or guidance provided by a supervisor or customer to the analyst during the undertaking of a task. Whilst the start of direction can easily be defined, it usually starts with the allocation of a task. The same cannot be said of the cessation of direction. The reason for this is that direction is continuous. This does not imply that supervisors should be stood by the shoulder of the analyst providing continual direction. More, that one is available should further instruction or guidance be appropriate. The degree of direction will depend upon a number of factors, specifically the competence and experience of the analyst and the complexity of the task. A competent and experienced analyst should only require minimal ongoing direction. Practically, direction is a thread that runs throughout all stages of the intelligence cycle. When initial direction is given, it is important that both parties, the manager and the analyst, have a clear understanding of what is required and what will be produced, negotiating timescales, resources and any limitations. Failures in communication at this stage can result in all parties being disappointed. The customer, because they didn't receive what they expected, and the analyst, because they have wasted their valuable time preparing something that wasn't required. In a well-organized, intelligence-led environment, direction will be cascaded down from senior managers through junior managers to those with responsibility for undertaking the actual work. Senior managers, having made informed decisions based upon priorities identified at local and national levels, in conjunction with previously prepared intelligence products. Another aspect of direction is the facility to review the success or failure of action undertaken on the basis of the recommendations of the intelligence product. However, it should be remembered that such reviews should be planned before commencement of any action. Otherwise, it will be not possible to accurately determine success or failure. This aspect of direction will be examined in more detail on the intermediate course. The collection phase is concerned with the collection of raw data of various kinds from various sources, both open and closed. Briefly, open source information is that available to members of the public whether or not if payment is required, whilst closed source information is information to which access is restricted, for example police databases. Large amounts of closed source data is collected during the normal business activities of a law enforcement agency and is stored within various databases. For example, crime and incident reports, offender arrest or process records, information obtained by prevention and enforcement activities, traffic enforcement, weapons licensing, previous convictions, domestic incidents, general intelligence, to name but a few. Data may have been obtained by specialist intelligence collectors such as field intelligence operatives, informants, undercover operatives, or even technical methods. In an ideal world, despite the fact that information is recorded in different business areas, for example crime complaints and custody records, it is important, if at all possible, that records are linked across those business areas. So the record of a person reporting a crime is linked to the record of the same person detained in custody for an unrelated matter. One search bringing back references to both records. Unfortunately, it is commonplace for agencies to operate with separate, unconnected databases for different business areas, with the inherent inefficiencies that result. Information may also be held by partner agencies in and outside law enforcement, private or commercial organisations or other bodies. Their information being accessible to law enforcement agencies only when there is a lawful reason to request it. Open source information might include information obtained from the Internet, libraries, newspapers, journals and books. On the face of it, open source information may appear to be the more limited of the two types. The reality is that open source information is by far the greater and is often neglected. As a rule of thumb, the collection of information should be focused and not haphazard, yet be as comprehensive as possible. This can often be best achieved with a formal collection plan, although not necessarily. Inevitably, it is not possible to collect all the information that relates to a subject or topic, if for no other reason than the existence of time constraints. Nor is it possible to know when everything has been collected. As a consequence, it is most likely that the analyst will often be working with pieces missing from the puzzle. Information cannot be taken at face value. There may be many reasons why it may be incorrect, from a simple mistake through to an outright deception. Evaluation attempts to address these situations and is therefore about making judgments concerning its value against specific criteria. It is important because it allows us to assess how much faith we can put in the information and any intelligence product that depends upon it. It can confirm problems need attention and indicate how that information should be dealt with. It is also resource effective. Putting it into context, if we have received information that two known criminals are planning a bank robbery, we need to know how reliable that information is before we decide how best to respond. If the information were considered to be very reliable and accurate, we would respond by allocating significant resources. If, on the other hand, the information were considered unreliable and inaccurate, we would respond differently. Evaluation, therefore, indicates a degree of confidence we can place in any information we receive. Unsurprisingly, as we have seen before, there are different criteria for carrying out evaluations, depending upon the country or agency examined. However, usually there is a standard grid of options represented by a letter or a number. The combination of these letters and numbers signalling the evaluation. Systems of evaluation are often known by the size of the matrix used for assessment. For example, 4x4 or 5x5x5. This form of evaluation also helps to protect methodology. As we know, information is collected across many areas of law enforcement businesses, which, for the most part, are not subject to any formal processes of evaluation. Only information collected specifically for the inclusion in an intelligence database is subject to evaluation as it is recorded. Analysts, in using information from other business areas, should consider evaluating it themselves. To reiterate, evaluation puts information into context, helps protect methodology, and assists decision-making. Collation is the indexing, cross-referencing, storage and retrieval of information. Its purpose is to facilitate further processing. It includes assembling information in a proper order, sorting and organizing information into categories or a logical sequence so that it can be retrieved as required. In addition, it facilitates an audit trail and the purging of material when it is no longer required. It also provides physical security of the information. It should be noted that where possible, information should be collated in an electronic environment. This makes the collation process much faster and easier. Uncollated information has limited value to an inquiry or investigation. If it sits in boxes or files without attention, information that is either evidence or material to aid the defence may be present but not found. Collation of the information is the quickest way to identify deficiencies so that further collection requirements can be instigated. One of the most important considerations in respect of collation is to ensure, as far as possible, that the format of the information is standardized. This ensures consistency when it is retrieved and facilitates subsequent manipulation and processing. Remembering that analytical products may form part of a court case, it is necessary to ensure that errors are eradicated and that the information processing can be replicated. Lawyers will jump upon minor errors and blow them up beyond all proportion in an effort to undermine the opposition's case. Analysis is the focal point of the intelligence cycle and is fundamental in the process of converting raw information into intelligence. No analysis means no intelligence. The components of analysis include the following: data description, inductive reasoning, hypothesis development, and inference development. We will now look at these individually. Data description is the examination of information in diverse ways, the purpose of which is to derive meaning from the information being analysed. There are numerous data description techniques that can be employed. It is important, in an effort to gain the greatest understanding of what is happening, the widest variety possible are used. Some of these techniques will be examined in more detail in the intermediate course and include a number of flowcharting techniques such as link, commodity, event and activity charting, statistics, correlation and time analysis, amongst others. When the process of data description is undertaken, it is highly likely that many facts will fall from the data. The drawing together of similar or related facts facilitates the creation of arguments. Arguments are the foundations upon which hypotheses are built. They are referred to as premise. The analyst should look to construct between 5 and 7 arguments, loosely addressing the who, what, why, where, when and how. This is known as 5WH. If arguments are the foundations, then inductive reasoning is the mortar that binds the arguments or premises together to build the hypotheses. Inductive reasoning is the process of reasoning in which the premises are believed to support the conclusion but do not ensure it, whereas deductive reasoning is the process of reasoning in which the truth of the premises provides a guarantee of the truth of the conclusion. Applying inductive reasoning enables the analyst to go beyond the facts or arguments, to take a leap into the dark, to theorize or hypothesize about what is or what might be happening. Any set of information will invariably have many alternative explanations, theories and hypotheses about what is happening or has happened. Some of these will be obvious and/or highly probable, whilst some may be extremely unlikely. Needless to say, they still need to be identified and evaluated as possibilities. What then follows is further focused data collection, the purpose of which is to test the various hypotheses or theories. The gathering of additional data may enable the analyst to support or disprove individual hypotheses. In the event that there are several that withstand testing, it is for the analyst to decide which is the strongest and should be taken forward as the basis for the inference. The purpose of the analytical process is to develop understanding of the criminal activity being examined. This understanding is expressed in the inference. An inference is in effect a picture constructed from an incomplete puzzle. An inference may take several forms, including the following. Conclusion, a judgment for which reasons are offered. Hypothesis, a tentative theory. Prediction, a claim that an event will occur in the future. Estimation, the process of finding an estimate or approximation which is a value that is usable for some purpose even if the input data may be incomplete. In practice, the analyst will be faced with explaining what has happened, what is happening, or what will happen. A good inference addresses the 5 WH, who, what, why, where, when, and how, typically including what is going on, when does it occur, where is it happening, how are the crimes being committed, why is it happening, who is responsible for the crime. Dissemination is defined as a method of communicating the results of the intelligence process to the manager or decision maker. The method of disseminating intelligence differs from country to country, and in some countries from agency to agency. Ideally, standard products should be used where possible, as this ensures corporacy, facilitates understanding, fosters consistent standards, and engenders familiarity. Hopefully not contempt. The intelligence product should be timely and appropriate. Timeliness means that a product should reach its intended customer in time for it to be acted upon and before its value decays. In addition, the intelligence must be appropriate and relevant for the recipient's needs and must be understandable. There are essentially two ways of disseminating intelligence. That is in the form of an oral briefing or a written report. In respect of both, there are numerous methods of delivery. The analyst should be cognizant of the requirements or preferences of their particular organisation. That said, the structure represented by the logical presentation method is that recommended in this course.